Hello, students. It's Mr. Dan. I'm in the studio of Miss Betsy Shulz, who is a premier ceramic artist. And how would you describe your art, Betsy?
I create sculptural tiles out of clay, and then I fire them. I bisque them first, and then I fire them and glaze them. Then I make them into large mosaics, and sometimes I'll use found objects, things that will last, like stones, glass, broken dishes. But I'll incorporate different types of materials into the sculpted tile murals.
Now, you're a public artist. Can you tell us where your art goes and what kind of public art that you do?
Well, what it means to be a public artist is that the cities cities and states and municipalities will require that a builder have 1 or 2% that goes towards public art. And so what that does is it helps to beautify the building or the space with art, which is great for us artists.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then, so that's part of how I got into it, where I was working with cities, like for instance, the city of Solana Beach. I worked with them to create some sculptures and also whole park tiles throughout a whole park, Fletcher Cove. And so it's...
And you did the entry signs going into the city, right?
Yes. So it's a
On the
combination,
trail.
a combination of art and signage and sculpture. And a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do is I try to have educational components in it. Like I try to teach people about the ocean specific to that area. Or I have a series of history panels downtown, which there's 10 columns off of Kettner Boulevard that tell the history of San Diego. So I called that my thesis project because I did 6 months worth of research and worked with the San Diego Historical Society just to totally understand the actual history and how San Diego came about. And then I sculpted the tiles and I did screened images onto tiles in high fire so that they would last, with the exposure. And that's the other reason I do the work that I produce is done in a way that will last. It doesn't degrade with sun exposure, rain, or anything else.
That's an important part of it, isn't it?
Yes, very much. It's all outside.
So any of our students, if you get a chance and you're going through Solana Beach, go to Fletcher Cove. It's a beautiful beach, and the artwork is spectacular. That's the first time I saw your work, and I said, I must get to know this person because this is just amazing work. Betsy's probably the most prolific artist that I've ever seen. She does giant projects. The scale of her projects is just phenomenal, and she's going to show us one of those in a minute. But you've done projects as far away as Pittsburgh and...
I've done a community center in Pittsburgh, and actually I went to school at Carnegie Mellon.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
So the connection wasn't directly through that, but the client found me on the internet.
Right.
And it's interesting because they found images that I never knew were public.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so be careful what you put on the internet. But it was really, really good because they were sketches and drawings for the Fallbrook Library. And through that, they said, we really want to interview this artist. And because I'm so familiar with Pittsburgh, we did a more historical, it's almost like a folk panel, which tells a little bit of the story of the Pittsburgh area, specifically to where they are. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, so it's really close to my heart.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I have to ask this question. Art saved my life as a kid. I was a troubled child. I tell my students that. I got nothing to hide. I'm a happy camper now because I love my art and I love teaching art to children. What does art mean to you? How has it changed your life? I see your work and I go, wow, this lady lives her art.
Yeah. Well, I didn't ever want to do anything else. I mean, since I was 5, my mom said I was sculpting in Play-Doh and mud and making things. So, and I also don't think, for instance, like my husband thinks, he's a scientist, very analytical, and I'm very intuitive, and so my thought process isn't straight. It's very much like a ping pong ball or I'm always moving around in not a straight direction.
Right.
So it becomes really stressful to be a student in a traditional school system. But art allowed me to be so much more creative, and the thought process is perfect. So I can't not do it. I mean, it's like my medicine. It makes me feel like a whole, complete person, and to be passionate about your life's work is all you can really, I mean, it's the best thing you can hope for, you know, along with your loving family who
Yeah,
supports
yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you're living proof that scientific linear thinkers and art thinkers can not only get along but complement each other.
Oh, it's perfect.
Wonderful.
He can figure out all my circumference and volume.
Wonderful.
Yeah, double check my figures.
Yeah, great. Well, let's show the kids the studio, and I want to thank you so much for allowing us in here and telling us about what art means to you. So let's look
Okay.
around. Betsy, can you show us a project that you have going right now?
Okay, my latest public art project is for the Carlsbad Fire Station. So what I've done is I've collected a lot of material for my reference to get inspired. So I'm actually going to sculpt these boots, but I'm going to sculpt them in section because it's going to be part of a 3D mural. And the hat and also the jacket. So I've asked the fire company to give that to me so that I could use that for reference. And this, I've actually gone online, thank God for all the opportunities you have online, and purchased some old fire-related artifacts to actually put in the mural. So those will be welded right into the
Oh my
frame.
goodness! Part of the mural
Yeah.
itself. Wow.
And then here, in this section, you can see what the first thing I do is work with the architect to decide where the murals are going to go on the building. So there's a SketchUp drawing here, and then what I do is take their SketchUp drawings and then I attach my murals to their drawings to make sure it looks good. And then also he gives me their colors, and color is very important to me. So what I determine is what color are my glazes going to be, what materials am I going to use in order to reflect and complement what's been, you know, designed by the architect. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is I love this glass, and it's called Dalle de Verre glass. And what's interesting about this and how it relates to the fire station is that it feels like it's water and fire.
Oh
So
yeah.
it gives you that feeling. And what
Can you hold it up, Betsy? Let's just kind of look through it and.
Yeah, so you can kind of.
Oh my goodness, that is just beautiful.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create tile with images, and I'm going to put those behind that. Glass.
I see.
And so it's going to create a very, moody type of art. You know, behind the glass, the image looks like something very different.
Right.
So that's the process that I go through. So it's in the approval stage with the city of Carlsbad, and I should. Right now, it looks good that I'll get approval probably in 2 weeks. But the process usually takes, it can take up to 6 months to a year to go through from design to actually when I start building the project.
Yeah. Wonderful. And you have another project going over here. Can you show us that one?
Sure. So the project that I have here, this is for residents up in Monte Sereno, which is near Silicon Valley. And I got the reference for this project through the Fallbrook Library, which is another public art project I did. And the architect knew an interior designer who knew this client. So it's funny how you start to get your work once you're out there. But the way I work is I used to hand draw everything and do it in scale. But with a computer, I can just grab images. It doesn't really matter to me whether they're low resolution, and then I can cut and paste and create one image for a mural. Then I can show that to the client in a photo composition of the space so they can get an idea of what it's going to look like. Once I do that, I blow it up big. I have to blow it up a little larger because there's 12% shrinkage in all the tile that is made. But once I do that, I make the tile, I'll sculpt it all out by hand, and then I bisque it, which is basically doing a firing to 1800 degrees. And what that does, it makes it hard enough that you can glaze, but it's still soft enough that the glaze will penetrate and make it easier to do the color. So here you can see that I like to have a lot of depth to the tiles. They're very sculptural. That come off the page. For a client like this, I can be a little bit more delicate. If I'm doing a public art project, I typically will keep things a little bit flatter because there's more opportunity for damage. So this is one part of it, and then the other part is sitting outside. So this is another part of the residence tile mural that I'm working on, and I'm just getting ready to do all the glazing on this. And typically what I'll do is I will actually rub on, rub off iron oxide, and I haven't started yet, but what it does is if you're painting, it's almost like creating an underpainting. So in a sculpture, it darkens the shadow areas.
Oh, okay.
And then you rub it off, and the lighter areas stay light.
Aha, okay.
So it's kind of a trick somebody told me, and I love to share that because then it also creates an overall consistency to the color.
Yeah.
And you have the iron oxide underneath everything.
How do you get all these pieces to fit?
Well, I have tools. First of all, I do everything to scale, and I do it to be 10 to 12% bigger. And of course, sometimes it doesn't shrink the same because something's thicker than something else. So I have a ring saw, and I use that to kind of cut things to make it fit. So in the bisque stage, I'll actually cut everything to fit and make sure that I'm just about right. And then that way, whenever I do the final glazing, it might shrink down a little bit more, but at least that way I know that I've started, that everything's squared up.
So we have to know a little bit about our math for this, for our percentages, because
Yes.
different clays shrink at different rates,
That's
right?
correct.
And yours, what clay are you using?
I'm using half and half. I get it at Freeform.
We use that a lot too.
Okay.
It's good clay, and then we low fire it though, but you can high fire the same clay.
Right. It's actually two separate clays. You have the low fire half and half, and I have the high fire half and half.
Ah, okay.
So they'll ask you if you want cone 5, cone 6, or low fire.
Okay, great. And then you fit all your pieces together, and the ring saw, of course, is a diamond saw that'll cut through it.
Yep.
And many of our students understand that. And then, are you about done with this now?
Yeah, once I glaze it, I'll get cement boards, and then I'll use thin set I use a Laticrete thin set, which is basically for glass, but it has a lot of additives, it's very strong. I'll thin set it all down, and then I'll grout it, and I use colored grout because I like the grout to match the glaze color so that it basically disappears. I spend a lot of extra time with color in the grout, color in the tile, everything. Color is really important.
Betsy, I want to thank you so much for inviting us into your studio and letting us see some of your secrets. Many artists die with their secrets. They don't want anybody to know them. And what good does that do?
Oh, exactly. You know what? I'll tell you anything. Because if you're crazy enough to do this kind of work, then more power to you. It's worth it, and it's nice to share because it's a lot of work. It's good to know from experts how to do things.